All right, 3 dead, 11 taken to the hospital. Those are the preliminary reports after the tragic crash of UPS 2976 today, shortly after takeoff. And I mean, barely after takeoff from Muhammad Ali Airport in Louisville, Kentucky. What are the details that we know so far? Well, we don't know a whole lot. We have 4 videos I want to show you so far, showing you various aspects of what took place. But UPS, who operates their main hub is Louisville, Kentucky, was operating flight 2976 from Louisville to Honolulu, Hawaii. That flight's a little over 8 hours long, about 8 hours and 20 minutes altogether. It's taking, I think, 220,000 pounds of gas, and that's going to be somewhere around 34,000 gallons of gas. And when you look at the video and see the fireball, you can see why that was just such a tragic thing that happened, and so much explosion, so much. The fireball was just absolutely huge, and we'll talk about things that complicated that as well. So what I want to do is kind of take you through the early stages of the flight. The airplane taxis out. They're fully loaded up. They're about at max gross weight as they taxi out. They taxi onto runway 17. They're cleared for takeoff. The airplane then begins its long takeoff roll. And there's a phase in that takeoff roll that is in between what's called V1 and rotate. And that V1 speed is the decision speed. It's the go, no-go speed. In other words, if you lose an engine, you have a massive failure after V1. You can't stop that airplane in the remaining runway that you have. You must go airborne at that point. So I believe that the pilots were past V1, and I know that because the flight radar 24 information tells us that they went off the end of the runway at 184 knots. That's well above any rotate speed for an MD-11. Now, this particular MD-11, 3 engines on the MD-11. It was manufactured in 1991. There's been a number of issues with the MD-11 over the years. When I first got hired at my airline in 1991, the MD-11 was the brand new shiny object on the planet. And so we only had them for a few years, and then we got rid of them because they were just maintenance headaches. They went to many of the cargo haulers like FedEx and UPS. UPS now is flying this airplane over to Honolulu, max gross weight, 34,000 gallons of gas as it goes off the end of the runway. As we watch the takeoff roll, the airplane gets barely airborne. You can see the nose of the airplane lift off. The number 1 engine is clearly on fire, and then it settles back in. Let me show you the video that shows you that very clearly here. All right, and there's a trigger warning. This is not going to be easy to watch. Here they are rolling down the runway. I'm going to stop it right there. You can see that the left wing, right where the left engine is on fire. The nose of the airplane is already lifted off. So the bystander who is filming this video gets it just after that moment on the runway where they hit V1, but they haven't quite gotten to rotate speed just yet. And so somewhere in between that, what kind of a no man's land, I've had that gap be as much as 10 to 15 knots of airspeed. It seems like an eternity. After you hear V1, you expect to hear rotate right away. And if it's 10 or 15 knots before you hear it, man, you're rolling down that runway, burning up runway, knowing you can't stop on the runway ahead of you, and you're going to go airborne, and you're hoping that nothing happens. Now, pilots prepare for this all the time, but what happened here, that's not something you can plan for. So they're rolling down the runway. They've lifted the nose off the ground. The ADS-B data says they went off the end of the runway at 140 knots and basically 150 feet of altitude. They're not that far off the runway. The nose of the aircraft, where the cockpit is, might be that far off the runway, but the wheels and the bottom of the airplane is much, much closer to the runway. Let me pick it up from here, and you're going to watch. It goes out of the frame just for a minute. It comes back in, and there's a fireball. So they're rotating just now. They're trying to lift off, and here we go. They get a little bit of airborne. They go out of the shot. The shot comes back in, and boom. That's right past the blast fence at the end of the runway. They've just barely cleared that by inches. And then, and we'll show you a picture of the top of the first building that they hit. There's this rut down the first top of the building. That could have been the landing gear. It could have been the left wing. And I'll tell you why in a minute. I think it's the left wing. I've got more video to show you. And now they create this huge fireball, and the airplane goes for what seems like almost a mile. I'll show you that at the end, the video of how far this airplane went. How do I know that they weren't rejecting the takeoff when they went to the end of the runway? Because of how fast they were going. Typical rotate speed at this gross weight is going to be somewhere around 135 knots altogether, 140 maybe at the top. They were 45 knots past that. They were past that decision point and they were taken off already. They just simply couldn't get enough lift to get very far airborne, just enough to clear the fence. The airplane settles back in. I want to show you a flight aware video that we put together, and we're just going to run this real quick. This flight aware video, and let's start it now. That flight aware video just goes for the duration of the flight, which was no time at all. And you can see the line going from left to right. The airplane begins to accelerate just a little bit in speed. It kind of wobbles around a little bit. The information is not very accurate on the ground. And then when it finally gets to the end, it's at 184 knots. And that's all we can really learn from that ADS-B data on Flight Radar 24, is that this got to 184 knots before they plowed off the end of the runway. Let me show you now another video of the Vantage now from a CCTV. All right. It's a closed circuit TV that's taking a look at the airplane after it settles back in and it's beginning now to crash. Here we go. Now watch from the right side. Now I'm going to stop it right there. You see the airplane coming in. It's already on the ground and it's already, the fireball is forming behind it. All right. I'm going to pick it up here. And you see the airplane right there. I'm going to stop it. It's on a knife edge on the left side of the aircraft as it then plows through a bunch of buildings and parking lots and everything else as it continues the carnage in front of it. Why did this airplane go so far? Because typically something like this, if they were to crash land, the wings would catch, the wheels would catch, this aircraft would dig in and it wouldn't go nearly as far as it went. I think it's because it went over on the left side. And so it's kind of like a knife edge. You can see that right wing with the right engine intact, by the way, up in the air. So this aircraft now is just plowing a knife edge in, and it's going to go for quite a long time, but it's got all of that momentum because it was going 184 plus miles per hour knots when it went off and it crashed. So I'll finish this video. Oh, that's hard. It's hard to watch. It's just really difficult to watch. So, what's the big picture on all this? What's the most critical phase of flight? The most critical phase of flight is the takeoff phase. Why is that? Because in the takeoff phase, you're the heaviest you're ever going to be. You got the most fuel on board that you're ever going to have. You're the slowest that you're ever going to go, and you're fully configured. And most importantly, you've got almost all of your power all the way up. So when you're landing, you're much lighter, you have much less fuel, and your power is pulled all the way back. So if you need to go around, you got all that power you can bring on to fly out of whatever situation you find yourself in. Not the same on a takeoff. So these guys are going down the runway. Something happens between V1 and rotate speed, and it's catastrophic. I have never seen an uncontained fire on an engine like this. Now, there's a video I'm going to show you here right now that is a picture of an engine sitting off of the runway. I've been told that it's the #1 engine off of this MD-11. It's not verified. None of the news services have reported that yet. So I don't want to get out over my skis on this because it could have been photoshopped. But if the left engine did fall off of this aircraft, it would explain a lot. You can see the engine is on fire as they're kind of, wobbling and rotating into the air. The engine might have already departed. It tore a bunch of the left side of the wing apart. You got this now uncontrolled fire going on, all of that loss of lift. And why the left knife edge? Because that right engine is still producing full power. So it's forcing the airplane to turn like this, right? And you're going to counter that with right rudder. You're going to try to bring the nose back around. But in a situation like this, where the engine on the left side has completely departed and you got full power on the right side, it's going to be so dramatic. It's going to be very, very difficult to keep that nose from coming all the way around to the left. So it does make sense that left wing or that left main mount gear would dig into that building as it was coming down into it. As it did that, the airplane kept rolling over. And as it rolled over on that knife edge, as you saw in the last video, they just kind of plowed right in, and they just kept going with all of that momentum. There have been reports now I've listened to on several news agencies. Reuters was reporting that they hit a fuel farm or a fuel tank off the end of the runway, and that's why that huge big ball and why the fire continued for as long as it did. I'm here to tell you that 34,000 gallons of gas is about 3 times as much gas as the airplanes that hit the World Trade Center had. I was originally scheduled on that first airplane, and typically a flight from Boston to Los Angeles would, on a 767, you'd take around 85 to 90,000 pounds of gas, maybe 100 on a rare occasion. They've got well over 2.5 times that much fuel on this MD-11. There was a shot from a helicopter, and you can see the long trail of fire that goes out. It seems like forever. It looks like it's almost a mile off the end of the runway, and it's just really, really difficult to see that image because that airplane had so much momentum when it went off the end of the runway. But what we know at this point is for sure is that left engine was on fire. It was an uncontrolled flame out of that left engine that expanded to the left wing. It would kill almost all of the lift on that left wing. You have full power on the middle engine and the right engine, but not enough for them to continue to get airborne at the very, very high gross weight that they are on a trip all the way to Hawaii. They limp a little bit into the air, then they lose lift and they wallow back down to the earth. They hit that first building. The airplane rolls over on its left side in a knife edge. All that momentum continues to take it on for quite some distance, almost a mile. And what we know at this point is all 3 pilots have been reported dead by the major news agencies, and 11 people, at least at this point, have been taken to the hospital, and more, I'm assuming more. There's lots of missing people that they haven't identified yet. So when day breaks, I'm sure we're going to get updates. As we get updates on this and more information, I will certainly come to you with any sort of update, but that's what we know right now that happened just this evening in Louisville, Kentucky. Folks, hang in there. I know it's a tragedy. It's hard to watch these videos, but I'll keep you updated as I can. I'm Captain Steeve. Talk to you soon.